The first time Elena Ward looked at me like I was the last rung on a ladder, it wasn't in the kitchen or by the furnace or during the storm. It was in the parking lot behind Holloway's hardware, wind knifing between parked trucks, her arms folded tight, like she could hold her life together with her own ribs. She had just watched me tell Robert Sterling no in front of witnesses. Now she stared at me like she was deciding whether that no was salvation or a new kind of trouble. "Why did you do that?" she asked, voice low controlled. "I can't pay rush fees. I can barely keep fuel in the generator." "I didn't ask for rush fees," I said. "We have a contract for the roof," she pressed. "Just the roof. And I'm not staying up there, Caleb. We are strictly professional." The boundary wasn't rude. It was panic with manners. "Professional," I repeated. "Fine. Good. Because I don't need a hero. I need a builder." I nodded once, then pointed at her sedan. "Your left rear tire is soft. First hard freeze, it slides. Propane tank sits right under that lean-to." Color drained from her face. She unlocked the door, and papers slid off the passenger seat, courthouse letterhead, bold stamps type that didn't belong in a small-town lot. Dissolution judgment. Debt allocation. Lie-in notice. I didn't touch them. I just read what was visible the way you read a cracked joist before you step on it. Her shoulders fell. My ex-husband hid debt, then left. The judge split it anyway. If I can't refinance the lien hits in 60 days. She gathered the pages with shaking hands. I can't refinance without clear title. I can't clear title until Sterling's survey claim dies. And if I can't sell this house at a real price, I don't get free. Sterling knows that. He's trying to force a fire sale. "You're not just protecting a house," I said. "I'm protecting my exit," she answered. Sterling's black SUV rolled up beside her like a shark. Window down, he offered a thick envelope with a calm smile. Elena took it with a stiff jaw and didn't open it. Monday, Sterling called. "Bring your checkbook." Civil dispute, my brain reminded me. No sirens, no immediate rescue. A judge and a calendar. Men like Sterling loved calendars. I could have walked away. Her problem wasn't in my contract. But I've never been good at watching something collapse when I know where the support should go. "I'll be there at 7, I said. "We start with the wall. Safety first." 7, she repeated like it was the only solid thing she had. Because I didn't just fix houses. I was good at making them stop falling apart. The Ward place sat up a gravel drive that used to be a road. Weathered, clapboard porch posts slightly out of plumb, a deck corner that dipped like a bad promise. The yard pitched toward the foundation, and the downspouts dumped like they were aiming for the crawl space. Elena met me on the porch at 7 on the dot, hair pulled back, eyes sharp, clipboard hugged to her chest. She handed me a mug of coffee without ceremony. Wood smoke clung to the air, and the heat of the cup bled into my palms. "Roof first," she said. "Roof later," I replied, stepping on the porch and feeling the subtle give. "This first." She tensed. "The contract." "The contract doesn't matter if you fall through your own porch." I crouched, traced the crack at the post base, then stood. Deck corners sinking. We jacket crib it, replace the post, and we pull water away from the foundation. Elena's jaw tightened. "That's extra." "That's survival," I said. "Storms rolling in. You want Sterling's lawyers and your bank hearing your house took water damage." The word bank cut through her resistance. She moved aside, and the gesture felt like reluctant permission. Inside, the house smelled like old pine and lavender attempts. The living room floor complained under my boots, but held. Elena hovered a step behind me, the way people hover when they're scared of learning the truth. The furnace sat in a utility closet with panels off and a space heater humming like an apology. "Furnace kicks on, then shuts off," she said. "Last guy wanted $3 grand. Last guy didn't want to crawl," I muttered. I set my bag down and did what I always did when the air got tight. I laid my tools out in a straight line on the floor meter: screwdrivers, nut drivers, probe, each one parallel, each one within reach. I took a slow breath, held it, let it out. The rhythm steadied my hands. Elena watched from the doorway. She didn't comment, but her shoulders eased a fraction, like order was permission to stop shaking. The board wasn't dead. A safety chain was being tripped. I traced the pressure switch, checked the inducer, found the kinked hose, cleared the clogged condensate trap, reseated the connections, and brushed the flame sensor clean until it shone. The igniter glowed. Burners lit clean. Warm air rolled out into the hall like forgiveness. Elena's breath caught. She stepped closer, careful like the heat might vanish if she moved too fast. Her fingers hovered near the vent, then dropped, then rose again, as if she didn't trust comfort. "It's running," she said. "Yeah," I answered. "It's running." Her eyes lifted to mine, steady for the first time. "Show me you can do that to everything else," she said, half challenge, half plea. I wiped my hands. "Show me Sterling's paperwork." She set the envelope on the kitchen table and opened it. A letter stamped with legal header: "Notice of intent to file. Claiming a 12-foot strip along the creek, the only flat area for a septic upgrade. The access buyers wanted." "Elena," I said, reading the parcel number twice. "Who did your survey, Tom Hensley?" she answered. "Retired now." I studied the map again. The claim line was too clean, too convenient. "We verify the old markers," I said. "With what a prayer," she snapped. "With paper and proof," I replied. "And with the land itself." Elena's eyes flicked to the lien notice she'd shoved back into her folder. Then she looked at me, the way a drowning person looks at a rope, like she hated needing it. I didn't reach for her papers. I didn't take the folder from her. I took a step back from the table, giving her room to choose. "You decide," I said. "If you want me in this, I'm in. If you don't, I finish the roof and I leave." Elena stared at the documents, then at my face, searching for the trick. She slid a worn folder across the table. Hensley's notes, sketches, an old Polaroid of a mossy stone with a chisel mark. In, Elena said, like she was signing a deal with herself. I stopped for a beat, looking at her with new eyes, then nodded slow. "Then we build this the way we build a foundation. Measured, verified, hard to knock over." By noon, the deck corner was stripped and the sinking post exposed. It wasn't a post anymore. It was rot, sitting in wet soil, the kind of rot that happens when water wins slow. I slid a bottle jack onto a solid pad, stacked cribbing clean and square-checked level twice, then once more, because houses don't forgive pride. "Stay back," I told Elena. "I am back," she said. But she took another step anyway. I lifted the corner a fraction at a time, listening to the beam complain and settle. Nails squealed. The porch railing shuddered. Then the tension relieved, like a clenched fist opening. I braced the load with a temporary post and cut the rotten base away. Mud smell rose sharp and honest. I dug down to the concrete pier, cleaned it, set a galvanized post base with anchor bolts, then dropped a new treated post in place and cinched it tight. When I eased the jack down, the deck didn't sag. It held. Elena's breathing changed. She stared at the new post, like it was proof she hadn't been stupid for trusting anything. "You've been walking on that," I said. Her mouth pressed thin. "Every day." "And you're still here," I replied. "That counts." She looked at me, suspicion trying to cover fear. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because you're paying me." "For the roof," she shot back. "And because Sterling is leaning on you with his whole weight," I said. "Bad engineering." Her eyes narrowed, then softened by a millimeter. She didn't like needing anyone, but she liked losing less. Inside, she made grilled cheese and soup that tasted like exhaustion and salt. I fixed the stove igniter between bites. She didn't say thank you. She refilled my coffee. That was her version. After dinner, she sat at the table with the lien notice beside her plate like it was another utensil. "What if we just go to the police?" she asked suddenly. I kept my voice steady. "They'll tell you it's civil. They'll tell you to get a lawyer. Meanwhile, Sterling files, Marla posts, your bank gets spooked, and your lien clock doesn't care that the deputy nodded sympathetically." Elena stared at her coffee. Her fingers tightened on the mug until her knuckles went pale. "So what do we do?" she asked, and it wasn't pleading. It was strategy. "We make it boring," I said. "Boring wins in court. Certified copies, photos, a sworn statement, a marker that doesn't move." Elena looked up, and for a second the panic had nowhere to hide. Then she nodded small, and the nod was a decision. That evening, I went up on the roof anyway, because storms don't care what's in contract, and neither do leaks. The shingles were older than they looked from the road. Curling edges, nails backing out. Flashing lifted just enough to let wind-driven rain find a seam and turn it into rot. Elena stood in the yard holding the extension ladder steady while the furnace heat spilled from a cracked window like a quiet promise. "You're sure you're good up there?" she called. "I'm better up here than in a courtroom," I called back and heard her short laugh carry through the cold. I pulled the damaged shingles, slid new ones in, sealed the flashing, and drove each nail the way you drive a point home, straight clean, no wasted hits. When I climbed down, my hands were stiff from cold. Elena met me at the porch with a mug of coffee, like she'd been waiting for an excuse to offer warmth. She didn't say thank you. She just held the cup out and watched my fingers wrap around it. For a second, her eyes softened. Then she blinked it away and said, "How much worse is it?" "Not worse," I replied. "Just loud about it." That got another breath of a laugh, and it surprised both of us. Later, after she went upstairs, I stayed in the kitchen and wrote a simple job log, photos, timestamps, materials. Because if Sterling wanted to turn repairs into accusations, I wanted receipts to turn accusations into nothing. I stacked the pages, squared the edges, and felt my pulse slow. Control wasn't a speech. It was paperwork and straight lines. Marla Sterling showed up at 4 the next afternoon, right when sweat turned into results. Expensive car, perfect hair, white tank, black pants, phone in her hand like it was part of her body. She didn't come to the door. She came to me on the porch like she owned the right. "Caleb," she said, smiling. "You didn't return my call. I didn't get your call." Marla laughed and angled the phone toward me. On the screen, a zoomed photo of me in the parking lot, Elena beside me, Sterling's SUV in frame. Caption, "Ready to become a problem." Contractor Caleb seen cozy with divorced homeowner in active property dispute. Elena stepped out behind me, and the air sharpened. Marla's eyes flicked to Elena. "Hi." Elena replied the name a warning. Marla's smile didn't move. "People are talking. I thought you'd want a heads up." I didn't touch the phone. Marla stepped closer anyway and put her hand on my forearm, fingers closing pressure just enough to mark territory. "I can help you," she murmured. "If you call me back." Elena's voice snapped like a slap. "Get your hands off him." Marla blinked, amused. "Oh." Possessive already, I lifted my arm, removing the contact without drama. "Put the phone away." "Or what?" Marla asked, eyes bright. "Or you explain to the court why you're interfering with intimidation and gossip," I said calmly. "You want to talk to your lawyer." Elena stared at me like she hadn't expected me to speak that language. Marla's smile hardened. "Sterling files Monday." "You'll miss your deadline, Elena. You'll be stuck." Elena flinched, quick, unwilling, then masked it by lifting her chin. Marla turned to me again. There are easier clients, Caleb. I didn't look away. Leave the property. The quiet after my words was full of the fact I meant it. Marla's lips pressed thin. She stepped back, then smiled one last time, wicked and satisfied. See you at the hearing, she said, and walked off like she hadn't lost anything. Elena stood rigid until the car was gone. She's going to ruin me, Elena whispered. She's going to try, I corrected. Eat something. Then we work. Elena didn't move right away. She stood on the porch with her hands at her sides, fingers flexing like she wanted to do something violent and didn't know where to put it. I went inside, rinsed the mud off my hands, and set my tape measure screws and notepad back into their slots. Straight, parallel. A small ritual that kept my voice from turning sharp. Elena came in behind me. She didn't look at my face at first. She looked at the counter where Marla's perfume still felt like it had a shape in the air. Then she looked at my forearm like she wanted to check for a bruise and refused to admit she cared. Her jaw worked. I hate that she thinks she can do that. I don't, I said. Elena's eyes lifted fast. I held her gaze. She tried. It didn't work. Elena swallowed. A tight breath left her like she'd been holding it under her tongue. She turned to the stove, busying her hands with a pot and a spoon noise to keep feeling contained. When she set a bowl down in front of me, it wasn't graceful. It was practical. A small gift disguised as duty. Eat, she muttered. I ate. And she stood close enough to feel the furnace heat without admitting she needed it. Saturday morning, we went to the county records office. The clerk's eyes went to Elena's ringless hand, then to my work jacket, then to the way we stood close enough to look like a story. I didn't give her anything to feed. I paid for certified copies. I asked for deed history plats and the old survey filings that referenced markers. I stood patient while a printer whined because time was a weapon, and I refused to let it be Sterling's. By noon, I had the original meets and bounds description and a survey from decades earlier referencing stone marker at Creek Bend. Elena held the paper like it could keep her alive. Where's Hensley now? I asked. Outside town, she said. He doesn't answer unknown numbers. Then we don't call, I replied. We drove to a small house with a sagging porch that looked like it needed the same mercy Elena's did. Tom Hensley opened the door with a cane in one hand and suspicion in his eyes. He took one look at the map and spat a curse. That strip's hers, he said flatly. Always was. He didn't say it like comfort. He said it like fact. He pulled a dusty field notebook from a drawer and flipped to a page with his own hand-drawn reference points. If Sterling moved an iron pin, that's a crime, he muttered. But you don't need that pin. You need the marker. That stone's older than both of us. He wrote a statement in shaky ink. Elena watched his pen like it was a lifeline being stitched. When he finished, he looked at Elena over his glasses. You don't let them scare you into selling your dignity with your land. Elena's throat bobbed. She nodded once. I drove him to a notary in town, because paperwork that matters needs witnesses who get paid to watch. When Hensley signed, Elena's fingers trembled on her folder. She didn't say thank you. She pressed her lips together and held herself upright. That was her thank you. We found the marker Sunday morning. The creek bend was loud, water dark, and fast. Elena's patience snapped halfway down the bank. It's not here, she said. Hensley was wrong, or Sterling moved it, or stop, I said, crouching near a crescent of eroded bank. Look! A flat stone sat half buried under roots. I scraped moss away. A chisel mark emerged, an old cross, shallow but deliberate. Elena's breath hitched. That's it. Photograph wide and close, I said. Video the path. Turn on location. She obeyed like her body finally had something it could do besides panic. We measured distances to the fence line, and the stump Hensley referenced wrote it down and packed the proof like it was glass. Sterling could buy witnesses. He couldn't buy that rock's age. The storm warning came that night. High winds, heavy rain, freeze behind it. We spent the afternoon turning competence into insurance. I rerouted downspouts with temporary extensions, dug a shallow trench to pull runoff away from the foundation-stacked sandbags at the low crawlspace vent, and stapled a tarp over a weak section of siding where wind-driven rain would find a crack and make it a problem. Elena carried boards, held the flashlight, and learned my rhythm. When I said, "Hold," she held. When I said back, she stepped back. Not obedience, coordination. Inside the furnace, heat turned the kitchen into something almost normal. Elena poured coffee. She set one mug down in front of me like it was routine. "Storms used to make my ex heroic," she said, staring into her cup. "He'd do one dramatic thing, then disappear for a week after." I looked at her hands. They were steady now, but the skin around her nails was chewed raw. "Tonight isn't about heroics," I said. "It's about not letting water win." Elena's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then the house creaked and the wind picked up. Sunday night the storm hit. Wind like a train, rain sideways. At 9, power blinked twice and died. The generator kicked on lights, returning weaker. Elena stood in the living room, arms wrapped around herself, eyes locked on the windows. "He could come," she said. "He won't tonight," I replied. "Storms steal witnesses." A bang hit the siding. A loose gutter section slapped the wall like a hand. Elena flinched. I grabbed my headlamp. "Stay inside. I'm not helpless," she snapped, but her voice shook. "I didn't say you were," I answered. "Boots, jacket, stay behind me." She hated the phrasing. She obeyed it anyway. Outside the yard was chaos. A maple limb lay downed in the rain. Water surged toward the foundation, but split when it hit the trench we'd carved. Not perfect. Enough. I climbed the ladder in the wind and secured the gutter with temporary screws. Elena held the ladder knuckles white. A gust hit. Elena swayed. I caught her at the waist for 1 second, steadying nothing else. Her breath caught. She didn't pull away. Back inside, heat from the furnace wrapped around us. Elena's hair was damp, cheeks flushed from cold and adrenaline. "My ex used to vanish when things got hard," she said, suddenly, voice rough. "He'd promise, he'd charm. Then he'd disappear and leave me to patch the mess." She looked at the divorce papers on the table like they were a bruise. "I can't afford to trust wrong again," she said. "I'm not asking you to," I replied. "Then, what are you asking?" she demanded, eyes bright with anger that was really fear. I set a dry towel on the chair within her reach. Then I lined the flashlights on the counter and the spare batteries in a neat row. "Small order, steady hands. I'm asking you to decide what you want," I said, "and I'll build toward that." Elena stepped closer, slow. Her hand pressed flat to my chest, not grabbing, not clinging, checking if I was real. I didn't move. Consent isn't a word. It's a pause where someone could leave and chooses not to. Elena's fingers curled lightly in my shirt. That was her answer. I leaned in slow enough for her to stop me. She didn't stop me. She rose on her toes and met me halfway, mouth firm, urgent like she'd been holding her breath for months, and finally let it out. When we broke apart, she stayed close, forehead nearly touching mine. "This doesn't fix everything," she whispered. "I know," I said. "But it helps," she admitted, voice like it hurt to say. Outside, the storm kept punching. Inside, the house held. So did we. Sterling chose the community room at Town Hall for Monday's mediation. Fluorescent lights, folding chairs, the mayor watching, locals whispering. Sterling sat like the table belonged to him. Marla stood nearby with her phone hunger in her eyes. Elena walked in with her folder hugged tight. She looked like she was carrying a weight she refused to drop. Sterling's lawyer slid papers forward. "We're offering a fair purchase to avoid litigation." "Fair," Elena repeated flat. Sterling leaned back, smile calm. "You're drowning, Elena. Take the life raft." Elena's gaze flicked to her lien notice, then to me, searching for something to hold on to. I didn't reach across the table. I didn't take her folder. I slid my own packet forward instead. "Before you talk about updated survey," I said, "look at the original deed description and marker evidence." Sterling's lawyer blinked. "And you are Caleb," I replied. "Contractor, witness, also the guy who brought certified copies and photos you can't argue with." I laid it out: certified deed copies, Hensley's field notes photos, and video of the creek marker with location data measurements to reference points. Then Hensley's notarized affidavit. The lawyer read, eyes tightening. Sterling's jaw flexed once. Marla's smile faltered. Sterling tried to pivot. This man's been alone with Elena Ward, in her house, in an active dispute. There are photographs. The room's attention sharpened. Elena's face flushed. This was Sterling's real play, not just land. Control of narrative. I kept my voice even. If Sterling wants to imply misconduct, he can do it on the record and explain why he's using a personal smear to distract from boundary evidence. The mayor adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Sterling, do you have a response to the marker evidence?" Sterling's smile thinned. "We'll need to review." "Take your time," I said. "Her lean clock doesn't." That landed, because everyone in that room knew what a clock meant. Sterling's eyes burned at me. "You're getting bold. I'm getting accurate," I said. Mediation ended without a signature, but Sterling didn't get his easy win. The mayor ordered a continuance and told both sides to prepare for an expedited hearing. Elena walked out into the hallway and finally let her breath shake. "We didn't win," she said. "We didn't lose," I answered. Sterling approached, smile back in place. "You're persistent, Elena. I'll give you that." I stepped between them without touching either one, just placing my body as a barrier. "Talk to your lawyer," I said to Sterling. "Not to her." Sterling's eyes hardened. "You think you're her savior?" I didn't raise my voice. "I think you're a bully with paperwork." Sterling's smile sharpened. "Bully or not, I still win." He walked away like he owned the hallway. Elena stared after him, shoulders tight. "If my bank panics, your bank doesn't get to panic quietly," I said. "You make them put everything in writing. No surprises, no phone promises." Elena's eyes met mine. A flicker of respect crossed her face. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. She just nodded and did it. The hearing was fast and ugly. Sterling's lawyer tried to call the marker informal. Hensley's affidavit and the certified deed didn't care about that word. The judge looked at Sterling, looked at Elena, and looked tired of rich men trying to redraw lines with intimidation. Temporary injunction. Sterling couldn't interfere with access or sale until a full survey review. No contact with Elena outside counsel, no harassment through third parties. It wasn't the final win, but it was a stoppage. Time, structure. Outside the courthouse steps, Elena breathed like she'd been underwater. "We bought time," she whispered. I nodded. Time is structure. Sterling watched from across the street, fury dressed as calm. Marla hovered beside him, phone lowered now, uncertain. Elena turned to me, eyes glossy but steady. "I still want to sell. I still want out from under the debt." "Then sell," I said. Her jaw tightened. "But I don't want this to be another thing I abandon because someone tried to bully me." I stepped closer, careful giving her room to retreat. "I don't want a clean slate. I want a foundation. Elena's breath caught. She stared, then nodded slow, like the words had found a place inside her that was still intact. I can do that, she said. She kissed me on the courthouse steps, quick and firm, a choice made in daylight with Sterling watching. When we broke apart, I reached out an open hand. Elena placed her hand in mine, and her shoulders eased like she'd finally put one foot on solid ground. 2 weeks later, title confirmed what the marker and deed had said all along. Sterling's claim died in a stack of paperwork that didn't care about his money. Elena's sale went through at a price that cleared the lien and the divorce debt. The day the wire cleared, she stood in the kitchen staring at her bank app like she didn't trust good news. "It's gone," she whispered. "The debt, the lien, all of it." "You're free," I said. Elena swallowed, jaw-tight, eyes wet, but refusing to spill. She crossed the space and pressed her forehead to my chest for 1 second like she needed to feel a heartbeat that wasn't betrayal. I held her steady at the waist, firm and careful. The furnace hummed. The house was warm. Coffee still smelled like morning. "What now?" she asked. "Now you decide," I replied, "and I build toward that." Elena's mouth curved, small and real. "Then stay." I didn't answer with speeches. I answered by stepping in and kissing her slower, letting her choose every inch of it. When we broke apart, the porch boards outside didn't groan like they were about to fail. "Tomorrow," I said, "we finish the last trim on the porch. Make it look like it was never in danger." Elena laughed, breathy. "Of course we do." I smiled. I'm good at making them stop falling apart. Elena's fingers slid into mine like they belonged there. Outside, the creek ran quiet. Inside, the furnace hummed steady. The house held. So did we.